Hello, my name is Greg Lehman. Welcome to Moonbeams. My guest today is Dr. Taylor Byas. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Outstanding. So we just started talking before I started recording. I had, quite the reaction to one of your poems. Loved it, wanted to start talking to you about it because I loved it so much.
Mhm.
And then you just started, dropping value that I think needs to be shared with everybody. So maybe we'll start there and it's directly relevant to, your latest collection that's going to be coming out
Mhm.
soon. So we'll just take it from there. Sound good?
Sounds good. Yeah. So the poem that we were talking about is a poem called "And So You Want a Poem," and it's actually the opening poem of my forthcoming collection, "Resting Bitch Face," which comes out in August. Super excited.
Yep.
But one of the really cool things about that poem is sort of how it came to be. The poem becomes a sort of character in that poem, and when I wrote that poem, I was also in the midst of writing a lot of persona poems for the Resting Bitch Face collection. And so what you'll see in that collection is a lot of persona poems of these really feisty and pissed off speakers, kind of addressing artists who are maybe not the greatest people, and kind of talking back to artists and some of the art of our time or some of the well-known art pieces in history. And in that process, I started to think about the poem itself as also this sort of thing to talk back to, because I'm talking to paintings, I'm talking to photographs. Why not talk to the poem, which is also an art form, right? An art form that I'm very much, knee deep in as I'm writing a book. And so the poem becomes a kind of thing, but also a thing that ultimately gets destroyed, like violence is kind of enacted right against the poem in the end. um because I think we are like always capable of enacting violence, and our gaze is always capable of being violent, and the book is very much about that sort of the gaze and how violent it typically is and can be. um it's a really fun poem. There's like a lot of sound and movement in there, and then at the end of it, um the poem kind of gets sliced in half. I won't give you the specifics of how that happens, so you can read it for yourself if you haven't already. But um, a lot of the poems, when I go back to them in this book, I feel like something kind of took over me. I'm like, how did I get there? But the fact that I feel that way, I feel excited because I think readers will feel that way twice as much. So yeah, it's a really, I think, fun beginning for the book.
Couldn't agree more. And it's especially interesting that you share that a lot of the poems are going to be reactions against, certain art pieces, certain artists, and everything like that, and channeling. It sounds like anger, and rightfully so in too many cases, with this poem, if I'll pull this thread just a little bit further, it starts kind of romantically and kind of sets that up, and then it goes into this place that you're describing of destruction. But obviously, poetry survives in the metaphor because I mean, this is starting a poetry collection, and the immersive quality of it too. It certainly shows. Like it feels deeply personal. So. If
Mm.
you could share just a little bit about the journey that you took there too, and what that immersion felt like.
I love the idea of it as immersive because I think I had in mind the actual space of like an art museum a lot throughout this collection. And I was often thinking about the experience of being in a space surrounded by things that you are looking at while sort of simultaneously also being looked at by those things. Um, and I think you talked about the progression from romance to a sort of violence at the end. Um, I think a lot of the book also considers the sort of capacity for violence in romantic relationships, or even the capacity of violence in just like a male sexual gaze that is objectifying, right? The thing or the person that he is looking at. And so they're like whenever there's a sort of possibility for romance or sexual desire, unfortunately, I think oftentimes there is the possibility for violence as well. Um, but that feeling, I think I love art museums for one, and I go to them as often as I can. I don't know when it started to happen for me, but at some point I started to sort of latch on to the eeriness sometimes of being in an art museum, especially when it's not busy, of being in a sort of empty room with all these art. And especially for me as a Black woman, I can go through a pretty significant portion of an art museum and see nothing that looks like me. I see a lot of portraits, I see a lot of people looking back at me, and a lot of it doesn't look like me. And there's that eeriness of also being in this place and being watched by all of these portraits of white people, to be quite frank. um, and I haven't been able to shake that as well. So I think as I'm considering art in all of these different art forms, there is a sort of undercurrent of unease. And maybe that immersiveness also comes from like that environment sort of informing a lot of these poems and thinking about being in the space and what it's like also to watch and feel watched in a place where I'm the only person that's supposed to be doing the watching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so much there, and we'll get to the other questions in a second here, but just it strikes me also that the collection starts with this poem. You are a poet and it's starting a poetry collection about, violence done to a poem and this persona that you encounter and then take in. It also takes place in your home.
Mhm.
And so like, opening the museum by bringing it into your living space also strikes me as a significant message as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance of that sort of environment and then these very highly personal
Yeah, yeah,
environments.
yeah.
Um, and I think there's a pretty wide spectrum of like personal poems that, quite frankly, stay pretty close to an I, right? A version of me. And then there are poems that I think I had to step further away from a self, right? And those are kind of the persona poems that we have to kind of embody a different sort of character or a different voice. But it's a deeply personal book in that I think it asks readers to be uncomfortable in a way that I think I first had to make a perceived self uncomfortable first. Like I had to kind of make myself vulnerable first before I asked a reader to be vulnerable in a similar way. And I think inviting a reader into those spaces, such as right the home, or such as these really personal moments where a reader might feel kind of like uncomfortable witnessing. But I think that discomfort or making myself vulnerable in that way, then I think gives the reader kind of permission later to do some inner work that they might not otherwise have done if I hadn't been vulnerable in the beginning.
100%. Thank you so much for that. And it also strikes me coming from a good place of like trusting your readers because you have shown trust in showing yourself through your art.
Mhm.
And that opens up the reader and it's a cycle and diamonds. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Cool. So moving on from there, what is exciting you most about poetry at the moment?
You know, I I'm in like my hybrid, I'm in my hybrid era, which you'll probably see in my book as well. I'm really interested in throwing other things into poetry. And so right now, well, first, I just had a conversation the other day with the poet Rosa Castellano um, about her collection. And in the middle of her book, she has a like a poem play. And I love when I see stuff like that. And it was so funny. I was like, I'm also writing like little poem plays right now. And so I'm really captivated by poems and collections that sort of completely just like drop other genres or other things into the middle of poetry collections. That is some of the most exciting stuff that ever happens to me. It's probably why I'm so obsessed with like ekphrasis because I just love dragging other stuff into my poetry's business. And so I think that's what's most exciting to me is people who are just dropping stuff into the sink of poems and just in being sort of comfortable with doing that and experimenting with that. I think that's fun and I like when poetry is fun and I like when I can tell that the writer was having fun and I'm having fun encountering it. That's what's exciting to me and what has been exciting to me as of late for sure.
Agreed, agreed. And what was the name of the collection?
Oh, is it all is the telling? Yes, I think so. All is the telling, I'm pretty sure.
Cool, cool. I'll drop a link in. Yeah, yeah. Very cool.
Yes, yes.
And which poets were most impactful in getting you to become a poet?
Oh, I tell this story all the time. Um, I always give credit to the poet Erica Dawson, who, when I was, a baby poet, like I had just switched over to poetry in my master's, and I was still figuring out what I even cared to write about, and I was still figuring out what meter was, and all those sorts of things. Um, but up until that point, the sort of poets that I encountered were either, very old white poets, and if they were black poets, then those were typically poets who were no longer living. And so I think I didn't really have a clear idea of what it looked like to be a Black woman and to also be a poet, sort of in the contemporary sense. And then Erica Dawson came to my university as a part of the university's writer series. And first of all, I'm 5'1", I'm very short. I had to introduce her, and she's a beautiful, tall, super tall woman. And so I was like literally in awe. I was like, oh my God, here's this woman who's like doing the thing that I want to do, but I didn't know was possible. And she gets up there and she reads these gorgeous poems. She's also like she loves form. I'm obsessed with form. And it was just like I felt like the heavens were just like, this is your permission. This is me like showing you the path. And so I always give credit to Erica Dawson for showing me that it was possible, and giving me the permission to go after what I didn't think was possible to go after. And then after that, I think I started finding my people, and Patricia Smith was probably the next big hero that I think greatly impacted my work, was a huge influence on my first full length in particular about Chicago. Um, and then probably some of the poets that I was studying during my exam year, like Audre Lorde, Alexis Pauline Gumbs, Lucille Clifton. I would say those are like very central to who I am as a poet and the fact that I am still a poet and that I became a poet. So yeah.
Outstanding. Love it. If you could change something about how culture views poetry today, what would it be?
And I'm actively working on this, but I need us to stop judging forms. Okay. We're gonna leave forms alone. Um, and I understand why they can be, terrifying, or I understand why people don't like them, especially when you start talking about like sestinas and pantoums. I get it, they're a little nuts, but I also think that they are so important, and they were really important for me, especially in those early stages. I think when I was still figuring myself out, I feel like form gave me gave me like a sort of container in which I could figure out what I cared about. It was like, okay, I have these rules. And so now my mind isn't worried about all these other things. You come to a page and it's blank and you have so much to worry about. But then you come to a page and you have to write a sonnet and you're like, okay, I know I have to do these things. And now I can focus more on what is this poem actually about? What's the story? What's the language? I feel like it sort of freed up some brain space. I feel like the form freed up brain space to really focus on some of those other concerns and to really form a voice in those early years. And even to this day, I feel like I come to the page and I kind of know what I need. If I'm like, I have too much going on, I need to get to the point, I'm probably going to go for something like a sonnet. If I need to really get to the point, I might go for like a choka, a Japanese form. If I need room to spiral, I might go for, a long girl like the Sistina. I think forms can be really, really productive and helpful containers to actually help us sort through our crap. And um, I wish more people sort of saw them as those fun challenges that they can be. And I think the tide is turning. I think more people are open, and hopefully, you know, time will continue to do that. But we gotta cut them. We gotta cut our girls some breaks. We gotta cut them some breaks.
Yeah, yeah. To pull that a little bit, if people are, interested in form, what's the first form that you introduce people to?
Oh man. I mean, I love a sonnet, and I think the sonnet is great because so many people are doing them in really exciting ways, right? You have like American sonnets, where you can, look at Wanda Coleman's or Terrence Hayes' American sonnets, and then you have like people
Yeah.
like that, you have people like Diane Seuss, Frank sonnets, a whole book of them, and she's doing something really wonderful and really different with sonnets. And then you have like Patricia Smith sonnet, like there's so many different examples of really exciting ways that they can be done, which I think always makes for like great conversations and in classes, and discussions. And so I think sonnets are really fun. I've also been teaching like about prose poems more, which I mean aren't as traditional. I think the sort of formulation of the prose poem is more recent, but I also think it's fun to talk about prose poems because I like to talk about them in terms of like film a little bit.
Hmm.
I think about like camera work when thinking about prose poems, and that's always really, really fun. And people tend to like it because I think you can apply some of those things to prose writing. So it's not just like a poetry specific thing sometimes. But I would probably say the sonnet is my heart. Pantoum following closely behind.
It shows. Yeah, I love it.
Right, me writing, three sonnet crowns in my first full length, like an insane person.
It's a good look. I like it. Um, Now, okay, so now word association here. So I'm just going to throw out 10 words, whatever comes to mind first. No wrong answers here. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right. Driving,
Stick shifts.
flowers,
Daisy
cat,
for
email,
delete.
ocean.
Frank.
There you go. Protest,
Sign.
contract,
Void.
sonnet,
Rhyme. It's the first thing.
friends,
Circle.
hope.
What was the last one?
Hope.
Yellow. Hope is yellow in my mind for some reason.
Interesting. I like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
like the sun, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I forget the name of it, but when like words have colors, or is it synesthesia? I don't remember what
It
it
is.
is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe I have some of that because hope is yellow for me. I pulled 10 words from my word bank from
Sweet.
my writing notebook for you. So these are from books that I've read.
Oh,
So
fun. Okay, yeah, let's go.
if they catch you, then blame the books, don't blame me. All right, are
Awesome.
you ready?
I'm here to get caught.
Awesome. Collage,
Paper.
eclipse,
Tiger.
flinch,
Don't.
bulb.
Ooh, hope not.
Just ooh as the word. I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Umbrella,
Rain.
bulb,
Light.
snake,
Lovely.
buzz,
Light year.
comma,
Period.
line.
Please.
Nice. Buzz Lightyear. Shout out to him. Shout out to
Fun,
him.
fun. So only one other friend of mine has done that with me so far. I like it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was like, I have all these word banks in here. Let's see what they have to offer.
Yeah. So do you write down words that you want to use or? Oh, look at
That's what
you.
I know. I keep a reading notebook of like every book that I read. I've been doing this for like 2 years now. It's kind of gotten a little insane. So maybe the camera's gonna interrupt me for the background. We can turn my background off for a little bit. Sorry, people.
Because yeah, I use Evernote, so like I'll write down, and I take notes a lot, like when I write. But you actually have
Yeah.
like a physical
You see
book.
my crazy books in the back.
Yes.
So yes, we have see if she's gonna there we
Oh
go.
wow, yeah.
Yeah. So you see my word bank at the top.
Do you write in cursive? Is that what I'm saying, or
It's kind of like a blend.
yeah?
Yeah.
Neat.
So
Huh.
word bank at the top, and then I have, quotes, snippets, ideas. And then what I had been doing is after every book I wrote, I would like make myself write a poem using some of the words from the word bank. And that kept me writing poems for like the last 2 years after graduating from school.
What a great practice. I love that.
It's been awesome. It's a lot of fun. And it helps me, I think, slow down. And I also for some reason feel very particular about writing in my books. So then it also like gave me the space to write notes while not messing up my books. So
Yeah, yeah. More space, obviously, than like the margin, So there you go.
absolutely.
Cool, cool. And then yeah, to close out here, well, almost to close out, but just a favorite line that you'd like to share that struck you as remarkable.
Yeah, I read the book Felon by Reginald Dwayne Betts recently, and I made note in my notebook of this line. Time is fucking inconsolable, is what I mean. A starved sea, and sometimes there is nothing, just days and their ruthless abundance,
Oy.
right? Like, yeah,
He's
yes,
right. He's right. Oh my goodness. Wow.
yeah. I didn't know what today was until my calendar was like, hey, you have this interview. And I was like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the reminder. And I also love when one word can transform something for me. And I was like, when I went back to that line, I was sort of amazed at the work that inconsolable does and how it sort of transforms time into the sort of physical right image of kind of like this child just because of the word inconsolable. And I think it's really wonderful when I come across things that remind me of just how much language can do for us. Like that's a lot of heavy lifting for that one word inconsolable to sort of completely transform something into something amorphous as time into this character that I can then see. And so I think that's one of the main reasons I find that so remarkable. So shout out to Felon.
Yeah. Oh, must read for sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, so we'll close out. If you could remind us again when your book is coming out and the publisher.
Yeah, Resting Bitch Face. She comes out in August, August 26th, I believe, from Soft Skull Press. You can pre-order. And if you want a signed and personalized copy, you can now pre-order from Downbound Books, which is local to Cincinnati. And then you can put in a little note section what you wanted to say, and then they'll go sign and personalize it for you before they send it out. So you should do that.
Amazing. Well, Dr. Taylor, thank you again so much. This has been a joy. Thrilled to see, your successes and to see what's next for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me an excuse to put on my cowboy
Awesome. Anytime.
hat.